Welcome to our homestead. Behind us is the cabin that my husband Krister, right here, I'm Amanda, my son Kai, our dog Frankie. Behind us is the cabin we live in off the grid. Been living here since he was about 2 months old, but my husband grew up here. So the house has a lot of history and sentimental value for us. And I guess we're just gonna walk you around really quick and show you how we make things work. So this is our garden, and it by no means is the source of our food, but it's like a hobby like everybody else, right? We've got the fall rains right now and we've got nothing. My lettuce all went to seed before it got big, and my peas are just starting to blossom now, so not very hopeful for this stuff. But it is fun, and my potatoes are doing great, so we'll have a good potato and onion harvest, so that's fun. We try to grow as much produce as we can with a 2-year-old around, picking seedlings and things, but really, we usually end up hiking into the grocery store. A hike takes me 2 hours and maybe a little bit more now that I've got a bun growing. And we always, when we go in, we have to carry Kai, and it's kind of arduous because even when we get to the truck at the trailhead, it's another 2 hours to the grocery store. So round trip is 8 hours before we even walk into the store. So everything's a mission.
Everything is a mission.
Everything's an adventure, everything's a mission. We try to be really prepared. It's not like if you're missing an ingredient, you can run out to the store and get it. You just have to improvise. All of our meals are cooked here by moi.
Except for what we order out and have delivered.
Yeah. So we haul in all of our non-perishable stuff. We'll get to that actually when we get to the little cabin. The garden is fun. And actually, I've been studying up on weeds that you can eat, edible weeds. We've got a lot of those. So a lot of chickweed and wild dock and fiddlehead ferns. You can eat fireweed. We've got a lot of stuff that actually all the wild stuff grew much better than my garden this year. So we're pretty responsible. We try to be pretty responsible. We don't burn plastic or chemical things, but we do all of our paper and our brush. We do a big bonfire probably once a month where we burn our paper and yard waste, things like that. And then you can see we have our little non-bear proof, non-mouse proof, but it totally works for us. Garbage. There's no food in there because we do compost all of our food and water waste. So it's just mostly packaging that we can't burn. Plastic.
What do you do with your plastic? Can I hike it out? Yeah.
Hike it out, carry it out. It's like camping, right? Responsible camping. Pack it in, pack it out.
I carried a lot of poopy diapers that we could have burned, and I did not. So I get responsibility kudos.
Yep, that is true. Yeah, we talked about doing the cloth diapers, but with no running water, it became just way too not feasible to do. So we'll just walk by here. You can see my laundry line is hung out here, so that's the dryer. So the rainy days are great because we get water to do the laundry, but then it's not a great day to dry the laundry, so we had to have
When you have to wait for the sun for the solar power.
Yeah, wait for the sun for the solar. So you get a rainy day, catch your water, then the next sunny day you'll do the laundry and hang it up. It takes a little bit of planning. Luckily, we'd only do about a load a week, and we have a high capacity washing machine. That was one of my things when we moved out here. Like, yeah, we need one of those. Even though we don't have the running water, we hook it up inside with the intake hose, the discharge hose. We by hand carry buckets out of the house. Totally worth it. Doing laundry by hand is not something that anybody wants to do. Woodshed. Do you want to say anything about that while we walk by?
I don't know what to say about the woodshed except that it needs to be bigger, right? Like
always.
Yeah.
Krister's mom actually cooked on that when he was a kid.
She cooked in that.
That.
She used the oven. I remember.
Cool.
She used to cook it in the summertime.
You get your fire going, and this would be. We took it. It's been falling apart.
Yeah. So
in the rain.
She would bake in the morning, and you'd have to start the stove early so that the house doesn't get too hot, but it would still get hot enough, so you'd have to prop the door open, and then you'd have to put a mosquito net over the door because you don't want a bunch of bugs coming in. Obviously, there's not a thermostat on there, so you're trying to pick the right pieces of wood. And I remember thinking that my mom was not a particularly good cook, and then I had this realization that the raw materials were at fault.
I'm gonna take you.
Okay.
I'm gonna give you to Uncle Con. I'll be right back. Okay. You guys walk past the bench and stuff, and I'll be back.
Getting rid of the stove was a hard one for me, or upgrading the stove. That thing just feels right, you know? Feels like the house should have an old school cook stove. So we took the top off of this thing. You know, it had the old school top with the burners. It's actually a desk. It's that desk that's covered in food in there. The pantry desk is the top of the old cook stove. So we pulled that off to kind of have that little remembrance of it, I guess. It's time to let it go. It's like it's definitely a hazard for
many reasons. I mean, it heated the house okay, but it would back up, and with the little kids in the house, I don't want there to be a lot of smoke. That one we have now is so much more efficient. You know, a couple pieces of wood, you're good to go. This you'd have to soak in the night, like waking up to stoke the stove, or waking up and having the house be super cold in the morning.
Yeah, that's the stove that we have now will run all night long.
We've had that thing
awesome.
going for over 24 hours. It'll just last. It is awesome.
That stove is amazing. So the specs on the stove is that if you fill the firebox, it'll burn for 30 hours. And I remember reading through that and I was like,
no way.
My ass, it's gonna burn for 30 hours. But if it burns for half of that, that'd be friggin' sweet.
As long as it gets us through the night.
I think that thing will burn for 48 hours.
Yeah.
Like if you really stoke that up and turn it way down, it's
the
crazy.
new wood stoves are awesome. Yeah. So we got the little Blaze Princess.
The Blaze King Princess, yeah.
Yeah. And it's
awesome.
so oversized for how big our house is. But our house is pretty drafty, so I think it's suitable.
I talked to the stove guy. And he's like, I described the house. He's like 600 square feet. You don't want that stove. That stove's way too big. I'm like, I don't think it is. He's like, well, do you have a lot of windows and is your house super drafty? I was like, yeah. He's like, all right, maybe that's the right stove. So as we've been plugging up the holes, it's becoming
warmer.
Yep. So the big house took about 9 months to build. This little cabin was where Rick lived while he was building the big house. Basically, he got dropped down. I think
here in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, he'd come in and stake the land, so he knew where he was going, and then he like recruited a bunch of buddies. And again, these guys were 28 years old or something, which is fun to think about, right? It was just a bunch of kids, really. And then they got helicopter dropped out here, and had this 5-day
sprint.
15 hours a day or whatever, and built this cabin. And so this is where he lived when he was building the big house, and now it's turned into storage.
Yeah, it's our food storage. So we don't have refrigeration, and there are bears out here, so we don't like to keep too much in the house, especially if we're gone for more than 2 weeks or so. We try to get anything that smells and just get it away from the house.
Pots and pans and stuff. I rebuilt this little cabin last summer. I was all fired up about it. It was like, it had been falling into the ground and just kind of looking like it was over.
It was rotting into the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, it was basically wood sitting on the ground, which kept it really cold because the permafrost, and the wood, it wasn't a sod roof, but it was just tar paper, so there were, a lot of seedlings and things growing up there. So it was really super insulated. It doesn't get nearly as cold as it used to. It doesn't stay nearly as cold.
But it's just kind of a bummer to rebuild it and then have to put plywood back over the windows for the bears. Just feels like I built this pretty thing and now it looks derelict again.
So yeah, we did a restoration project. So all the timbers are the original. You can tell these are peeled logs instead of skinned logs, not peeled logs. And it's fun to think that these are the logs that Rick was working with, like back in the 80s. So yeah, so we, in the spring, the late spring, on the last crust of snow, we haul in all of our non-perishable goods. So we have mostly pasta, rice, cans of goods that we keep in here. And then we have 2 coolers, one for dairy and meat, which, really you've got to eat within the first 3 days out here. Yogurt actually lasts forever though. Cottage cheese and sour cream, anything cultured, it's great. And then we also have our produce bin and things like cabbage, carrots, potatoes, onions, that lasts forever. But anything like berries that we want to bring, any special treats, have to get eaten within the first day.
Yeah,
so.
The food thing is a whole process. I'm not really sure how to explain it. Oh my God,
the food thing. Yeah. I could write a book about how to, make your food last longer, what the order that you should eat things in, and I could make a menu out of what can you make out of just canned goods, stuff like. I do wish we ate better, but I think we're actually doing pretty well.
Yeah. Do you ever think about actually doing that?
Reading a book?
Like an ebook or something?
I'm real busy right now. But yeah, once all the projects are done, all the building, Yeah, so the building projects, Krister's awesome. He's fast, peels the logs, get everything notched and put together. And then I usually come through and there's this permachinking, which is a great product. It's a lifeline product, but it takes a long time for me to put it in. And we've had squirrels that I've actually gotten through those rodents, I swear they can fit through anything. And once they get in here, we have one metal big garbage can in there, but everything else is just Rubbermaid, and they've eaten through thick plastic. We've had so many problems with squirrels getting in, and they've eaten through the wood even, but they don't eat this stuff. It's like a latex type of, some kind of medium in it too that makes it thicker, but it's awesome. So on the house, it's like weatherproofing, but for here, it's just rodent proofing.
It works though. Yeah.
It works great. When I get the time, I've gotten the big holes, but I haven't gotten through and gotten everything on there yet. But so that's where we keep everything storage, long-term storage and food stuff. Dream projects. We've got we're gonna put a little carport off the side so that we can keep our snow machine and tool shed. So that will free up space in our wood shed too. So we've got some vision for the place too.
There's a lot.
There's a lot.
Still happening. Yeah.
Yeah, with him working full time and me full time momming, things are slow. It's a snail's pace. I keep thinking, gosh, if I had my mom come out or aunties come out for a month, I could get so much done. But we get about 2 hours of work done a day, like homestead work done.
We've got the snow machine over there underneath the tarp. Usually, historically, we had dogs. So there's, you can see this is actually a dog spot. There's probably half a dozen chains.
Dog hookups
out here. So we haven't had dogs for the last 2.5 years. I miss them, but the snow machine is way faster, and you can haul way more. So this is just a big ass, it's like 10 feet long with no back, so I can haul building logs.
That's what the stove came in on, that's the washing machine came in on.
Yep.
Yeah, basically everything that's big comes out in the winter on the snow, because if it doesn't, we have to carry it in on that 2-hour hike in on your back. I mean, Krister's carried 80-pound packs through a bog. It's grueling. Yep. But once everything's out here, you kind of forget about that. You're like, oh, sweet, we've got a new window. We've got beautiful stained glass window at our guest house. I love it. And I don't know, not really worth going down there. It's just a trail that dead ends into a pit of compost. But we have to hike all of our gray water, like cook it, drain your pasta or your food scraps, or you brush your teeth and spit into a bucket. All of that gets carried down and dumped far from the house so it doesn't attract animals. And you'd actually think, I've been surprised, like mice get into it, but there's nothing big that's ever really been down there eating.
I've never seen bears down there.
In the winter, it's fun to see the tracks, to see who's come to feed.
Yeah.
But we eat a lot of vegetarian stuff, so there's not a lot of meat scraps going in there. So it really is like carrot peels. Future site of our carport, and actually the old site of the little cabin.
Yeah. So basically, these old, I don't know what you call them, the foundation logs. Raft logs or whatever. This was the original foundation for the little cabin. So you can see the back here. It's kind of just starting to rot out. This hole in the ground, if you can kind of tell, was where the old little cabin was. It was rotting down. I was going to rebuild it, so I tore it down and was going to rebuild it in the same spot, but I started to dig holes for the foundation, the sonotubes, the foundation pilings, and ended up running into like immovable giant rocks. So I just took the whole thing and moved it over, and then we had the brainstorm that we should just have another, like a gabled roof, so another roof that comes off the back of this thing, and that's where I'll park the snow machine, and I'll put a bunch of lawn
tools
stuff
and building supplies.
Yeah, so this whole place has been just this huge work in progress for the last 3 years. And like I said, Rick came out here 35 years ago. What he did is amazing, blows my mind every time. And then I think he sat on his thumb for 35 years and just let everything rot and like stapled visqueen over the holes. It just like didn't deal.
Well, he is busy doing other stuff.
Yeah, so
he had you.
So anyway, so we've been dealing. But yeah, I'm actually really excited about this.
Yeah.
This will be cool. So this is concrete for the pilings. So that's one of the new and improved features.
So, next spring's projects, and we've got all of our logs and
200 years from now, when they find this site, there's just going to be like 24 of these little cement pilings sticking up all over the place. But it's awesome to have the house be up, and like this will never rot out now. So it's like Kai's gonna have nothing to do. I don't know what he's gonna do.
What's that kid gonna do? Just like have fun.
He might actually just stay here and hang out. What a concept. So we've got, there's 3 solar panels back there. 4 solar panels, one of them smaller. But so we have about 750 watts of solar, I think, 770 watts of solar, something like that, which is a ton for what we need. At least it's a ton for what we need until winter hits, and then
the no amount helps.
Yeah, exactly. So we go from having this enormous surplus to having not nearly enough in the space of like a month.
Weeks.
Or it's crazy because you've got 24 hours worth of light, and then you've got almost 24 hours worth of darkness in the space of 6 months. That equinox period when things are changing the fastest, you lose like I want to say
a day.
There's a month like September you lose like 2 hours or something. I forget what the number is, but so the panels are rad most of the time. Like it's probably 8 months a year, and there's 4
we're
months
just
a year.
throwing away power. I wish there was better battery capacity.
Yeah, if I could store all that, like I have enough on an annual basis. If I had the biggest battery bank in the whole world, I'd be set.
Yeah.
Right? Like totally set. And then that's the satellite dish is a necessary eyesore. Kind of bums me out, but it does what it needs to do. So that's how I work.
Keeps us connected.
Satellite for the internet, yeah. So it's like you said, that's how I work. Every year, this is just like full of firewood.
Every spring we haul in all of our firewood and building wood.
Yeah. So
This is you'll see like we get it piled high, and then it's the whole summer of processing, chopping, and stacking
And that's to save the trees out here. Like you don't want to cut any trees down here. Or...
I'm warming to the idea. So basically, it's hard for me. It's this weird balance of feeling like I want to have as little impact as possible, and I feel like if I take 1 tree per acre, then the forest will never know, right?
well, for building logs, we try to get the dead standing spruce trees. They're drier, they're lighter, they're easier to move, and it's better. We've got a spruce beetle infestation up here that has been killing off our spruce trees. We actually had to cut down one of my favorite huge old growth trees because spruce beetles, but those make the best building logs.
Yeah.
So we get those. So we go around and specifically choose those spruce trees for building.
Yeah.
And then the birch trees, we try to get the ones with the busted off tops because they're going to rot out and die anyway.
Yeah. So there's some of that. So there's not enough compromised trees here. There probably is on the property if I looked at the entirety of the property and tried to pick them off, but I don't. It's weird. So people have been harvesting trees out here for almost 40 years, and you would think that there would be just like stumps everywhere, but it's not like you can tell as you're getting to our neck of the woods, so to speak, that they're suddenly just stumps everywhere. And I think that part of that is that we do range more widely probably than we need to get the trees. But I've been starting to feel like the view has been compromised, right? So
trees have grown in the last 30 years.
If I started taking the trees here, then the view would be better, and I got to take a tree from somewhere, so maybe I should. I don't know. But anyway, basically, in the springtime is a whole flurry of activity, and getting in firewood is one of the big things. So, but this is the old porch. So I, ripped down the old porch to build this new porch, and then these are all the sort of dead porch logs, which I'll throw the ones that are truly rotten and compromised on the bonfire, and then I'll cut up the rest of them and we'll burn them, which kind of feels a little cannibalistic. It's sort of exciting to burn the house. This is sort of iconic, right? So we've got both of these logs, which is where I set up the building logs to peel them, because you got to, the log comes in looking like a log with bark and whatever, and then the tree comes in looking like a tree. Then you've got to process it and peel it to make it look like that. So I've got this peeling station set up and a bunch of log peels, and then the dog pulled in a moose leg.
Oh yeah, you can't see that probably.
Yeah, so that's the moose bone. Well, the dog sits here and watches me do my thing. So this is like where I spent my summer.
Well, it's all actually it works great because you have the extra firewood, but the log shavings make perfect kindling. So we try to pick those up before it rains and use what we can. Sad we had all those sled dogs it's a whole culture that has had to shift. The dogs used to eat the scraps, so we didn't have to hike that bucket out so far. I mean, the dump bucket used to be the dog food bucket. It really did. Frankie's a little more picky of an eater, and he can't handle all that. But yeah, and just the culture of like walking out the door. I mean, there's a year and a half we didn't have a dog, and it's weird being like you walk out the door, maybe there's a bear or a moose, you wouldn't know it. So we saw our alarm dog.
I was standing right here. It was probably 2 weeks ago, so it was still light. It was 11 o'clock. It was just getting dusky, and the dog comes up and just gets super excited. You can just tell he's on full alert, right? And I can't really figure out why. So I'm just looking out. It looks like the forest. We're just hanging out, and then he goes racing down towards the spring, probably 20 yards, and then there's this giant bull moose that just comes standing up out of the yard. That was literally, it was like
the grasses
25
are so
feet
tall.
away. Yeah, it's just sleeping there. He's this huge rack, and it's like it was like a cartoon moment just to see him like rise up on all four legs all at once. A, that it's real, that there's there
Stuff.
are moose, there are bear, and they're not that far away. And then B, that just you don't like it's closer than you think.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
right
it's
here.
funny. So the hike out is far. People don't just show up here. Like they come with a purpose, and we know they're coming, and we usually have to hike out and get them because the trail is almost indistinguishable from a game trail. I was here alone with Kai. You were somewhere getting dripped on. And I was in the kitchen cooking and doing dishes, and he was playing by himself. And all of a sudden, Kai comes running up. He says, "Mom, who's that big guy in the yard?" I'm kind of like, "What?" And it's like, "Mom," grabs my hand and pulls me over the window. "Look at that big guy in the yard. There's a moose." I was like, "Oh, it's a moose, honey. It's okay." But it is one of those reminders of, just random things will walk through the yard. And it's really those moments where you're like, oh, and it balances out the hard stuff. It makes it feel like, oh, that's right. That's why we're out here. This is cool.
We do water catchment, which is not drinking water, but it's
Wash
laundry
water.
water and wash water. So when we're taking saunas, that's the water we use to bathe, and sometimes dishwater, that sort
I
of
was
thing.
gonna say dishes, laundry, and body washing water.
Yeah.
And cleaning up, perma drinking and doing stuff like that.
Utility water.
Utility water.
So we do have a spring that's it's probably 50 yards, 100 yards
Down the
that
hill.
way. So that's where all the drinking water comes in. I carry it up by hand. It's funny. We were in San Diego before we lived here, and it was like this huge drought. This place is I think still classified as a boreal rainforest. It's just soaked. There's water everywhere. And we go through, I know exactly how much water we go through because I pull it up by hand. And I pull up 2 5-gallon buckets, and that lasts us for 2 or 3 days. The 3 of us, when we're bathing in there, go through, I think, about 6 gallons. So it's about 2 gallons per person to bathe. And it's just ironic to me because coming from San Diego where everybody's worried about the water and it's a big drought and whatever, I'm sure we were using, 10 times, 20 times that much water.
Yeah, we could use a lot more, but we use what we want and whatever.
Yeah. So this is a total mess. Like the whole, it's a homestead, so everything's kind of a work in progress. But when I pulled down the old porch, the porch was also sort of the
Catch-all.
tool shed catch-all place. So now all that crap is piled up right here. I'm trying not to put it back there, but I need a place to put it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna build that. So I'm gonna build that carport thing, and then it'll really be cleaned up.
That'll be cleaned up for sure. Just comes off the roof. No gutter system or anything. It rains so hard, the roof gets cleaned off, and we never go through this much water. It grows algae before we can get through it all. Sauna is awesome.
The sauna, the bathhouse.
The bathhouse is, that probably is a better term for it. That's the old stove that actually used to be in there before we rebuilt it. It's now a planter.
Yeah. So there's been a bunch of building projects in the last 2 years. This was not was it the year before? I forget. Anyway, a year or two
Kai
ago.
was 6 months old, so it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, we rebuilt the sauna. So this is we fire it up pretty much every other day, and sit in there and get sweaty and get hot, and then when you're ready to go in, just basically take a Navy shower, dump water over your head, soap up, rinse off, and it's great. I mean, it feels like you're getting cleaner than you do in a shower because you're sweating it out, right?
Kai loves it. It's funny, when he was a kid, he didn't really like baths, but he loved the sauna. He just sits there, plays with his toys. Here we're inside our sauna. Christian and his brother built this, and it actually took a little work. because we had to design the floor to drain, but keep it up off the ground, and we had a couple of just
pretty high-tech engineering. That's good.
High tech.
Well,
Yeah.
how'd you figure it out? Like what happened?
Well, so there's all these happy accidents so the old sauna, the reason that we had to rebuild it, there was a couple of different reasons, but one of the reasons was my dad's building style was to build everything on the ground. So the old sauna logs were literally positioned on the ground, and what would happen is, again, you're taking this Navy shower where you're rinsing, soaping, rinsing again, and then all the water just goes onto the floor. And I was like, well, when I pull this up, I don't want the logs to rot out, and I don't want it to get icy and like not drain, and I'm not really sure exactly what to do. So basically, the floor, when we laid the floor out, it intentionally bows in the middle and also drains to the back. So my real like stroke of genius was there's pressure treated 2x8s that run. So I don't know if you can see, but basically there's a perimeter here of pressure treated wood. So the water runs to the back, and then there's about an inch lip up here, and it just pools up and drains out, and it's actually worked great. So the pressure treated wood will probably last forever, but even if it doesn't, I can pull it off and replace it, and I can replace these boards. So I fully expect that in the next 10 or 20 years I'll have to rip up the plywood
Just
in
the
here.
floor, though, is just so much easier than rebuilding the whole structure.
Yeah.
So we've got our wood stove. It takes about 15 minutes or so to get it cooking.
Depends on what time of year it is.
Yeah, but there's our hot water we put our water in there just like that, heat it up. We've got our rainwater in a 6-gallon bucket there, and we just mix the temperature that we want. Kaiga has his little bath right here. And you know, we've been doing it family style, which means I'm pregnant, I can't get in a hot sauna, so we've been only running it like 110, 120 is good for me. But back in the day, man,
We've had this place cooking. I like to
soaked it up and sit and just so wet.
numbers that I will tell you that make no sense. So that's the sauna thermometer, and we've had it at 230, which seems like impossible, right? Like the water should be boiling, right? Like, yeah, that's the other part of the sauna is you sit in here, gets super hot, and then in the summertime dump rainwater on your head. In the wintertime though, you can literally like go snow swimming, which that'll take your breath away. Do that a couple times, and it feels.
You feel squeaky clean. Literally, your skin squeaks.
Well, you also feel
so tight.
this natural
empty.
high of like, you go back in, you're just like, whoa, I'm zonked, but in a good way. So everything
Yeah.
seems really pleasant. And one of the big new features of this sauna is my 2 windows looking out north, so you can sit here and look at the mountains while you're cooking.
Not just any mountains, Denali.
Yeah.
Looking at the Alaska range. So Denali is fairly prominent. I cut out the branches of this tree, so it's just framed and sweet. Kick it, get too hot, look at the mountain, swim in the snow, repeat, and then you're clean.
Yeah.
So this is the guest house. The idea was that little cabin that we looked at earlier. We were going to just rebuild the little cabin, and we kind of started to get carried away. And
Got excited.
So the little cabin, when we were kids, we used to turn it into a fort. But of course, it's full of crap. So you would sort of like move all the crap to one side, and then it would, put a little bed in there or whatever. But I remember being like 8 and 10, and there's the shotgun that's hanging over the door in the big house. We took our 22s out, put it over the door. We like got our own 5-gallon buckets and started getting water from the spring. It was like, this is going to be our house. So I wanted to. It's nice to have a guest house when people come out here, like you guys. So we're like, okay, well, we're going to rebuild the little cabin, but we're going to do a little bit better and maybe put a loft up so you can have like a place to stay. And then we just kind of started getting carried away, and now this place is way too pretty to store stuff in.
Way too pretty.
Yeah, I mean, we got a stained glass window
That you had to hike out,
hanging
right?
out on my back, man. That lead.
Dude, that thing came from Indiana, like special. It's so funny. So we did a big sailing trip before we came to live here in the woods, and we were looking online, and I saw this, and I loved it. I loved it. It's this sailboat, stained glass window. It's beautiful. Throws rainbows everywhere. And Krister's grandmother, Rick's mom, why would you have a sailboat way out in the woods? And so I was like,
Then I was like, because we went sailing, Grandma. She's like, oh, that's wonderful.
that's perfect. So that's our little reminder. The woods and the sea are just big places we want to be We do have 2 auxiliary beds. Our strawberry bed has been overtaken by wild raspberries, ironically. But we have our rhubarb, and we've got, I'm actually trying to plant cultivated big raspberries, so those are starting to take off. So this is such an improvement over what used to be.
I think of this place as super fancy. I had a buddy that came out last summer. He was like, as he was sort of doing the post-mortem, we were walking back out. I was like, so what is, how did that compare to what you were imagining? He's like, it actually was like a little bit less rustic. Like you told me it was super rustic. It wasn't that rustic, but the outhouse, that's rustic, dude. That place is rough. I remember feeling like this is the new fancy outhouse, bro. What are you talking about, man? Like this is the good outhouse.
Yeah, the old outhouse the dogs usually used to actually get into, and like it would leak. It was just disgusting. So now we've got our toilet, our separating toilet seat.
Yeah, we've got a urine separating toilet seat. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, this is the shit bucket, which we empty periodically.
We tried super hard to find somebody who would pump it, like an RV place. Like if we hauled it out in the winter, would you pump this? Everybody's like, no. We tried to bring it to sanitation. They're like, no, nobody wants our shit.
Yeah.
So it kind of, we do what we have to do out here, being as responsible as you can be.
But anyway, so now it's a bucket of crap and not a bucket of piss and crap.
Yeah. Which helps in the winter when you empty it, just.
Well, it helps in the summer so it doesn't fill up, so you have to empty it.
I never thought it would work for ladies, but it actually does. It works every time.
Yep.
You just have to, in the winter, you have to remember to empty the little pea catchment can, otherwise it freezes. We burn our toilet paper, so really it actually takes a long time to fill one of those for us. 2 a year, we're good.
Yeah.
So in the spring, along with the hauling, that's another one of those jobs. Spring gets really busy around here.
Mm-hmm.
Between hauling the firewood, the building logs, the provisioning. You also have to remember, take your shit out.
Yeah, dude, if you're ever up here in the spring, you should check it out. That's like totally different and really fun.
Every season out here is completely different. It's, you wouldn't even recognize it, honestly. So in the winter, the walk, all these alders will branch over and you have like a little snow tunnel. It's super, super cool. Isn't that like magical when you get that flocking on the trees? It's so pretty.
This is the new porch. The new porch
It's glorious. I love it. We can hang out here and not get wet in the rain. The fall rain is coming, so it's like a place that Kai and I can go. I can put him out here when he's screaming, which is excellent. The house is pretty small when he has meetings. He's working online. So it's like a whole extra room to the house now.
And I built it to be fairly grandiose. I wanted to make a statement.
This is your statement piece. I think the door is your statement piece. This is what we've worked the hardest on.
Yeah, this is new. This is fancy.
It has a latch on it.
Love that sound.
So this house was basically built by one person. Normally you get a team of people and you place sill logs and you stack them up. But the stockading here, that's the logs that run up and down, make it possible for one person to kind of do this on their own. So it's a pretty unique style. You won't see cabins like this.
Yeah, most log cabins have the horizontal
logs. So it's special, but it comes with its own set of issues. Every single thing has a story.
Right? So this is the just in case shit. Right? It's just like insurance. This is the artifact of having a 2-year-old in the woods. So that's Kai's chariot, back and forth, 2 hours each way. I climbed Denali the first time in 2001 with these snowshoes that are probably 50 years old, and we were the retro guys. Every time we would get into camp, they'd be like, "You guys are the retro guys." I was with Rick, my stepdad. So we had these bunny boot crampons and these snowshoes and bunny boots, which are total old school gear, right? Everybody's got now.
Korean War vintage Army surplus, which they're the best though.
It was exactly the right thing to climb the mountain in 1976, and we climbed in 2001 and had all the same gear. And like literally, we were known up and down the mountains. Like, you guys are the retro guys. It's like, no, we're the gear guys, dude. We're the guys that can't afford the plastic boots.
So that's the shrine to the days of yore. Because we don't see family that often, we keep, for my son, like all the aunties and the grandmas and the grandpas, and we've got all the regular kid stuff, books, but then we also have special stuff. The lead star that we have to keep up really high now that we have a 2-year-old around.
That is hilarious. So
Christian
my
grew up
brother
out here.
Yeah, my brother and I had a stump where we would put targets and we'd do 22.
Practice.
Yeah, shoot 22s for like hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, to the point where you could go in with a pocket knife and dig out bullets, except they weren't bullets. They were like a bullet amalgams, because there was just like the stump itself was basically lead. So we dug up all of the old lead bullets, and Rick cut a form into a piece of wood, and we poured a lead.
I know,
scarf.
guys are.
Yeah, so this'll make you talk funny, but it's cool.
It is all the stuff.
Everything has a story.
Everything
you know?
like that. Everything. Every single thing. Like this picture. You know.
From 1982.
From 1982. Yeah, and it's been hanging there since 1982, right? Like, I don't know what's behind there. There could be holes that, mice come in. And
Guys' toys, although half of those toys are my toys. That's a cool thing. I mean, I feel like you don't really get that anymore. People growing up in the same house or having your kids in the same house that you grew up in. Like, these are literally, this is Uncle Forrest's chainsaw. Uncle Forrest got this when he was 5 years old, 22 years ago. And now Kai thinks it's the coolest thing in the world and runs around and helps me, build a little cabin with his toy chainsaw. So yeah, Kai's toys.
Yeah, Kai's toys. Yeah, all of this stuff is.
Yeah, that's Uncle Forrest.
Yeah, all this stuff is pretty old. Like Duplos, the original Duplo bunny. That's pretty sweet. Original Micro Machines. They're pretty cool.
Yeah.
This is my domain. Sometimes, feels like I live here. Right here, specifically. We cook all of our meals here. There's no takeout. No one's going to deliver us pizza. Oh, I wish they would. It would be really awesome. So Amazon someday with the drones.
Yes, everybody keeps asking about the Amazon drone delivery service, and I'm all about that. I support that program.
I mean, when we get into town, it's if we're like on a mission. We're going to the grocery store because it's a 2-hour hike out and then back. So you've got 4 hours of just the trail. Then it's another 2 hours down to town and back. So that's another 4 hours. So it's an 8-hour round trip before you even do anything. So
basically, everything is a mission, right? So it's like, it's very rare that you have the time to be not on a mission.
Basically, you're begging, borrowing time from a friend. It's like, can you watch my kid, and then can I also please stay overnight on your couch? Except for now we have a kid, so it's not like couch. Do you have a spare bedroom that we can use? That's something that's, we do have friends in town. They do let us do that, but you're not doing it every week. You're not doing it every month. It's a special occasion kind of thing.
So let's talk about all the fancy that we got.
Oh, we made so fancy here.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of upgrades since we moved in. One of the things that I found special about living here was walking into the house and really feeling like you were walking back in time. It felt like that. You had the old cook stove, and there was, I guess we had plastic buckets, but really other than that, there was sort of no.
You guys had like lanterns, kerosene lanterns and stuff when you first moved back here.
Yeah. Part of it feels like just totally right, because it's the necessity of what it takes to be able to live here for us. So for example, I have to have a fairly elaborate solar setup because I have to have power, because I have to have the computer, because I have to log on. So if I'm going to have all that, running these LED Christmas lights is like, it costs nothing, right? It's free, yeah. Right? So all of the lights that you see are new in the last 2 years, and it's funny to me sometimes. I'll turn off all the lights and I'll turn off the one single light that we used to have over in the corner over there, and just to realize, I mean, it wasn't even that long ago, right? We're not talking 30 years ago. We're talking like 3 years ago that this house, that was like as bright as you could get it, and it's crazy to feel. That's one of those things where you don't. There's certain things about being here that are really different than being in a conventional house, and lighting, as funny as it sounds, is one of the big ones, where it's the winter and it's dark. Basically the sun rises at 10 and sets at 2, and it's dark all the time. And when you really can't make your house light, you turn on the light and there's like this one little pool in the corner and everything else is still dark. It really feels like winter is just forever. But you turn on these Christmas lights, and even though the lighting is still pretty mellow compared to a conventional house, it's like now we can see
nice.
And do the dishes, and there's been some upgrades like that, which is it's a push and pull for me, because it's nice to have that, and at the same time it seems antithetical to the
rustic.
The rustic, yeah. I feel like I'm kind of making
the roughing it. Yeah. Not out here to rough it, honey.
Yeah, we're out here to
smooth it. Yeah. Whose quote is that?
Rick's.
That's Rick's.
Yeah. So anyway, so the track lighting up here is new. The Christmas lights that run around the house are new.
This is my Christmas present last year. There used to be a cook stove literally right here.
So that stove, believe it or not,
that's new too.
That's like a super fancy stove. That's like a $3,000 stove. It's got a catalytic reburner, and it's like super fancy, top of the line, like 89% efficient or something stupid.
Well, yeah, the old cook stove, when it backed up, it would get super smoky in here, and I was like, I have a 2-month-old. I'm not bringing a 2-month-old into a smoky, sooty environment, right? That's not what a good mom does. So, and you know, who wants to be cold? And this had been a pretty drafty, cold place to live. So, the first time when we first moved out here, that was the first thing. The second thing was the washing machine. I needed a washing machine, and this was just last year. And those are probably for me the three biggest.
Yeah, the
life changers. Really life changers out here.
The process of getting these things out here is real, right? Like, so it's funny actually. So nothing that we've brought out is bigger than the old cook stove. And then the old cook stove came out in 1982
on a dog sled.
Yeah, and was dropped 3 times, and the fire brick was cracked, and you know, is a thing. But yeah, bringing this thing out, it's not as hard as you would think. It's just. You got to put it on the snow machine, you strap it down, and hope for the best, and then like avoid all the trees. Basically, is the process. It is a real deal when you're thinking about what you're going to bring back. It's like, well, is that going to fit on the sled, and how is that going to work? And it's a totally
and if you want it in June, you just have to wait until there's enough snow. Which last year it wasn't until Christmas.
Yeah, we had plans to buy this stove months before it actually came out here, right? Because of that.
Waiting for the snow.
Right, and there's, the stove is one thing. Like, obviously, I'm not going to put this 150-pound stove on my back, but even just the stuff, we redid the counter last year, and just these 2x12s, like,
heavy.
I guess I probably could have made an extra trip and brought the 2x12s, but really, it's the kind of thing that you do when it snows. So you definitely like plan life based on the weather, which is kind of cool. The trail is miles, and it is not passable on an ATV.
It's a footpath. It's like a game trail, and it goes. The reason is we can't have ATV is because it goes over creeks and over sloughs and over tundra, which is pretty tough terrain to put any kind of trail. And walking is difficult. So not only are you walking so far, but you carrying all of your produce in the summer. You don't want to have any extra weight to that. So if you're already, and Kai is not getting any lighter. I think he's like 35 pounds now. So, and then you add all your groceries to that, and we each have a pack. And that's the problem with this. I can't do a pack anymore. So this summer it's been lean, bringing stuff in and sending Christopher out on solo missions. And so I really don't get into town. When you ask that question, I'm like, into town? I can't remember the last time I saw other people, which is a weird thing to say, right? We're in some ways so connected, having the internet access back here. In other ways, it's just the human contact, like the actual physical contact, is.
That's one of the things I think about all the time. Like, so I have instantaneous feedback. When this house was built in 1982, Rick walked out here, and there was no cell phone, there was no internet, there was no anything.
There was radio, and he...
No, there wasn't when he got back here. I mean, there was the radio, like the FM radio.
Yeah.
But he, would walk out to the post office, get a letter, walk back, be here for a month, and then send that letter, and then it would take 2 weeks to get there. It was like the communication cycle was so different, right? And now it's just like everything's happening, and it feels so 21st century to me, as funny as that sounds, to be out here and just have all that communication running back and forth. And it's such a different vibe than it ever used to be.
It is weird because in some ways it's a total throwback, without the running water and being on our own electric system and whatever. Yeah, that's all old, but in other ways it's the same as anywhere else. So this is our, I'm going to say sink. And it's funny, the other day I asked Kai to bring a dish to the sink. He's like, where's the sink? I'm like, oh, the dish pan. It's here's our dirty dishes. I'll heat up whatever was the biggest pan that I cooked in, put the water on there, and I'll wash the dishes, dry the dishes, put them away, which is totally normal, except, people talk about dishwashers are so water efficient, and it's so ironic that we have more water than we could ever use up here, and at the same time, because we're hauling it by hand, we use so little. This is our dump bucket, and it's a 5-gallon bucket. That's where all of our vegetable peelings,
That's
compost.
the drain, basically.
The drain, exactly. So I know that when I do dishes, I use less than 5 gallons of water.
By a lot.
By a lot.
You might use
Yeah.
half a gallon.
So people make this argument like, oh, the dishwasher saves so much water. I'm like, yeah, but you could do dishes with less water. Hand washing is another thing that just gets difficult with the 2-year-old. Wash your hands. Soap up his hands and make him hold them over the bucket, and you're rinsing them just with a little cup, of water. Oh, this is vintage. This is our hand washing cup.
Pillsbury Doughboy.
Pillsbury Doughboy, man.
It's 35 years
This
old.
is an antique, I'm sure, but we use it every day. So here's our washer. How it's an awesome dryer. It's like large capacity, which is great because we only do about 1 load a week. 2 if it rains, and we have the extra water. But on the back side here, we have 2 large Rubbermaid tubs. 1 full of water for our intake and 1 for our discharge. So basically we just drop the hoses in the tub, sucks it up, washes and rinses, spits it back out. And then that water we actually haul out by hand, dump it out in the yard. Biodegradable soap, because it's interesting. We always worrying about contaminating our spring because that is our only drinking water source. It's the reason why we hike our water over here and dump it so that's on the drainage back away from the spring. Same reason why we don't ever move our outhouse, because who wants to contaminate? We don't really know what the drainage system is like down there. We don't want to contaminate it because that is what really keeps us alive out here.
Yeah, the spring is.
It's amazing. It's a magical spring.
Yeah.
40 below, it's still running. Summertime, 80 degrees out, it's still like 33 degrees.
The summer before my first year in college, Rick and I decided we were going to finish the room that was started in 1993. I graduated from high school in 98, so it was 5 years, I guess. It sounds not as long as it felt, but this was going to be my little brother's room, except by the time it actually got finished, he was not living here anymore. When we go look at the little cabin, we'll talk about it, but we ended up pulling out all of this shit from the little cabin, and this has turned into kind of like the pantry. It's Kai's bathroom. It's like random stuff. There's a lot that's been going on between getting ourselves up here and having, being pregnant and having Kai be 2 years old and just trying to
And you're working full time.
Yeah, working full time and trying to arrest the decay. Like, I've rebuilt the sauna, the outhouse, the little cabin, the front porch, and we rebuilt that place in the last 3 years. There's a lot that still needs to get done.
There's no architectural design. There's no building code. No one's coming out here to check us.
Definitely not to code.
Not to code. It's not 5-star energy rated, but whatever you want to do, dream big, right? Whatever you want to do, whatever you can do, you can do it, which is really fun. And I swear, if I didn't have kids and I could just do projects all the time, happy as a clam. It is super fun, and it's cool when you look at the wood and you're like, I remember that tree as a tree, and I remember peeling that tree, and I remember, I didn't spike it in, but I remember Krister spiking that in. But it's really a cool feeling. Especially, I love going over to our guest cabin because we built that. From the ground up. We picked the spot. We did everything.
Frankly, this bookshelf is not really ideal. Let's be honest. Yeah, stuff tends to fall off of it when the door closes. But
because you have to slam the door to get it to close.
Yeah, but Rick built this bookshelf.
He built the chairs.
37 years ago.
Built the table.
It hasn't moved. Neither have the books.
No.
You look at the top of them, you can tell.
The fact that we have encyclopedias.
Right, yeah,
we have the whole internet.
I told Forrest that we need to get rid of these because we have all the information in the world in our pocket. Forrest really likes to look stuff up in books. Encyclopedias, just in case the internet fails, we'll still know stuff.
From 1982?
Yeah. No, those are 76. Forrest was born out here. Forrest is 10 years younger than I am. So there's 3 of us brothers that grew up out here, Forrest being the youngest. Forrest was born in 1990, about 15 feet that direction. He was born 2 weeks early before the midwife got here, so my mom was out here on her own.
Can't even imagine.
With Rick. It all worked out, I guess.
Yep, he did not die, if you recall.
Yeah, he did not die, and she did not die. Although it's a good thing that nothing too complicated happened. Forrest has kind of followed in Rick's footsteps, and
Is the book here?
That's his book. So Forrest has written his book. Rick wrote a book about Rick wrote 2 books actually here about what it's like to be out here and kind of the story of getting here and that whole deal. So we've got 2 authors in the family, so we have a lot of books. And even though, like I said, I'm a total Philistine and happy on YouTube, we have books. So maybe Kyle will read.
You could be a crazy kind of kid that reads books.
Yeah, I can't.
Might not play video games. It's gonna be a real weirdo. So the table was Michelle's dream.
Yeah.
The black lacquer.
Rick.
So yeah,
this is worth talking about. So Rick came out here in 1982 from Chicago with
Manhattan.
Yeah, no, you're right. From Manhattan, growing up in Chicago, from Manhattan, with a couple dreams, and a dream, and there was a couple of items in the dream that were just like touch points, and one of the things was we're gonna have a black lacquer table, right? It was like 1982.
She wanted pink and gray cups with black lacquer. That's so 80s, right?
Yeah.
And we still have this stuff. It's like
right. Yeah. So these cups were brought out here probably in a backpack in 1982, and they've been out here ever since. This is the black lacquer table that probably did not sort of come out as imagined.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. I don't know if you'll pick this up on camera, but the lacquer is pitted, the seams are cracked, and it's so low on the priority of things to get fixed and changed. And everything's sentimental, like we've been saying. Like every time you pick up a thing or look at a thing, like, oh, we don't, remember that story? Like the posts over here is a good example.
Yeah, let's look at the posts.
The posts are pretty cool. I love looking at the posts because
so
they measure the heights of the boys.
This is brother 1. This is me, brother 2. Brother 3 is on the other side. So that's the 3 brothers growing up from my first mark is right here in 87.
And Kai's down here.
Yeah.
His first mark when he was 2 months old is
this is Uncle Kai's first mark in 85. Forrest's first mark is like down here in 1990. And then this is my son is down here, first mark in 2015. And I just think that's rad. These posts are like history.
They're really fun.
So it's cool. It's cool. I was that tall when I got here. We've done a bunch of these building projects, and you do the building in the summer because that's when it's happening. And inevitably, you brought in 90% of the lumber that you needed, right? Which is not minor, to figure out, like, the building project is happening. It's not like you're going to wait until the wintertime, so you got to go bring that in your bag. And you probably forgot a window or 2, which is kind of mind-blowing, right? You should be able to calculate that beforehand. But anyway, so we brought this window in
the summer. This was
in the
not
summer.
flooded.
So I'm
this was carried in on
carrying
your
it in on my
backpack.
back. I've done the trail. I'm exhausted. I'm feeling pretty good. Finally got the window in. I pull my backpack off, lay
Right
it
by
on the
the
floor,
porch.
and I just hear. So it's a double pane glass window. Amanda did this cool
Cover up job.
yeah, but if you check it out, that's
Duct tape on the
that's
back
duct
side
tape
of
on
it.
the backside, right? 'Cause, and someday maybe we'll replace it, but really
But really,
probably we won't.
it's one of those things. Like everything, it works just good enough.
Yeah.
Like it, and it'll be the kind of thing that we won't replace, and then Kyle will be like, "Oh, but my mom did that painting." Well, let's just leave it. Stuff like that.
Or that's half the time. It's like, oh, my mom did that painting. I don't want to move it. The other half the time is like, what the f is the matter with these guys? Really, this window's been broken for 35 years. These guys couldn't bother to freaking bring out another window. What the hell is the matter with these people? Which is, like I said, half the time I walk around here, I'm like, oh man, that black lacquer table, that thing is 35 years old. There's a lot of stories, a lot of good times around that table. And the other half of the time, I'm just like, how come I've got black Visqueen sitting on my ceiling? Maybe we should fix that.
Kind of like the couch that's vintage, man. That couch was brought out here, early 80s. And it was bought used because Rick did not have a lot of money. So he got that thing used, and it's been here since the 80s. And Christian, we were just talking about this, like, when did you first start putting this together? There's like nails holding that thing up, nails upon nails upon nails.
I remember being 12 years old, the arm on the couch was broken. Like, you could lean against it and would just kind of fall over. And I remember coming in here with a hammer and an 8-penny nail and just banging it in. And that was in 1992. So we'll
love that couch. A lot of good memories.
We'll replace that couch someday.
I don't even want to now that the dog's here. Like, the dog sleeps there. It's perfect for him. If you had a new couch, you'd have to kick the dog off. It all works out.
This is the upstairs of the house. It's an unfortunate design. We've got these 3 dormer windows that face north, and then these big ridge poles that run down. So you have to duck under at the bottom. And of course, we've got bookshelves and crap, so you can't actually walk through in the middle where you wouldn't have to duck under. So we spend a lot of time ducking under. But this is the power area. It's also a total embarrassment. I just want to say for the record, this is like not my best work. Charge controller, 2 inverters. This bigger one is for the washing machine, which is their only real load. This is basically for my computer. Lights. There's not much in terms of load. It's basically my computer, the satellite dish, the washing machine every once in a while, and the lights, which are all LED and don't use much. So the batteries are under here. We've got we've got 2 400 amp hour 6 volt batteries, so we've got 12 volts at 400 amp hours. There's I want to say 750 watts of solar outside. The interesting thing about the solar is we have way too much all year until about, I would say, like the middle of October towards the 1st of November. And then like October 15th, somewhere between October 15th and November 1st, it's like now there's nothing at all. So you could quadruple the array and nothing times 4 is still nothing, right? So it's kind of funny that way. So we run the generator every couple days from about November through February. But other than November through February, we're totally on our own. We've just got a little Honda E2000. This is an inverter charger. I run it for about 3 hours every other day, and that's enough. So we've got the blackout shades that we'll take off here pretty soon, actually. But you know, from I want to say April through about
October.
The end of August, beginning of September. It's like you kind of,
if you want to sleep well,
because you've got nothing but sun.
Well, with Rick a writer and Forrest a writer.
And Forrest is an author. My family's very cerebral. I just watch videos.
Yeah, right. I mean, we don't have TV, and books are great. We've got a lot of them out here, and because, you know, and not all of them are the best, but whatever. Yeah. I'm looking forward to when Kai can read when we can read to him, you know, those classic, books. That would be fun. Yeah. Reading Rick's book to him will be a trip. That'll be really fun.
I'm excited about that.
Little Tree will be awesome. Yeah.
This is my office.
I built that for Krister. Oh, because I just couldn't stand the idea of a regular office chair being out here, even though it would be more comfortable. And if you told me you needed it, I would totally let you, but this looks so much better than a swivelly office chair. So
it's not the Herman Miller Aeron chair.
No, it's not. But I like making the stuff. And this birch, so we cut down birch for firewood, right? And as long as the wood is green, you can bend it and just cut it to fit and nail it together. It's really fun. That's another one of those things like, I can make furniture. So yeah, I made this chair. I made Kai's high chair, little end tables. I have big dreams of making a coffee table for the guest cabin, and a few other things, like the basket and stuff that's over there.
So I'm a software developer. I write code. I've got my split screens, and I want you to make sure that you capture this. This is where I get all my really good ideas. So I do a lot of big thinking up here, and that's kind of what I'm working on right now. So feel pretty good about it. This is where I spend 40 hours a week or so.
It's amazing, yeah.
It's a really weird feeling. It's the weirdest dichotomy in the world. When I close that, it's like it's a moment that happens, right? It's like San Diego stops, boom. Now I'm in the wilderness, right? It's like this bizarre feeling, and it's really cool. And all of a sudden, I wander downstairs, and I'm in this kind of primal deal where I've got my pregnant wife and my 2-year-old son in this log cabin in the wilderness, versus, like I said, Twitter and internet and JavaScript and blah blah blah.
Yeah, it is different for me. It's interesting that your life is so much different out here than mine, just because he's going to work.
Yeah.
I feel like there'll be days where I literally don't talk to anyone except for these two. More than days. Like it's been like a week, because that guy keeps me busy. Like having a phone call where you're like, hold on. And you got your kid and you've got dinner and you only have 2 hands. Your cell phones are not made for this.
Just the fact that you're talking about phones, though, is like that's a whole new reality out here.
Yeah, for sure.
That's fancy pants for us, and that's actually new in the last 2 years too. We didn't have cell phones that worked out here, but we've found the right provider, and we got the cell phone booster, and it's like I said, it's this weird. It's not 100 years ago. You can't pretend it's 100 years ago. This is where the magic happens. Like I said, I've got about 800 watts of solar, so there's a lot of black back here. I'd love to move it off the porch, but I feel really guilty when I start thinking about cutting down the trees. So the panels need to be up as high as possible and facing south. So I'm up and I'm south, and I've got a clearing right here. So if I was going to like put them in the yard or something, they'd be way farther down, and I'd have to start cutting down trees. So right now they're in the back porch.
Yeah, well, our back porch has other improvements that probably should be dealt with first.
There's a lot of stuff that's going on, a lot of ins, a lot of outs. I'm going to redo the back porch. These will go, but for now, this is my 4-man's solar array. Which is to say they're leaning up against the side of the house.
Dish, it's so ugly.
This is crazy, dude. This is real right here. We got ones and zeros that are streaming out from here into outer space, down to San Diego, back out here to the Alaskan wilderness, and that's how I'm making money. That's crazy. I can't believe that's happening. But that's real, dude. That's real. And it's strapped to the side of this log cabin that was built in 1982, and when this place was nowhere. And it's still
nowhere. It's still nowhere.
We got the cell antenna back there, which is, like I said, that's a new reality too. People call the phone rings. It's wild. It's pretty wild.
On this rug. This rug is hilarious. Can you tell the story about this rug? This is a nice rug. Like for Ridgeline, it's really fancy. Apparently, Rick had gone to town, so he would go on binge money-making spree. So he was a taxi driver or something, whatever. Found a guy's wallet, and this was back when credit cards were like brand new. So he went and bought this rug, and then returned the guy's wallet to him.
Well, he found the guy's wallet, bought the rug on the guy's credit card, and then returned it to the guy's wallet. So anyway, that's our stolen rug. It's hot.
It's a hot rug. It's a hot rug.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the only way that's probably one of the fanciest things out here.
The stories for me is how he did this with no money. Like, I'm doing this with money, right? Like, I have a good job. I have a real job where I make real money. And Rick was out here for real broke, like extra special broke, and did all this. And that's just a different way to think about it for me. It's interesting. Like the dichotomy between what I'm doing and what he's doing is really interesting to me. And I just feel like we're just...
We're cheating.
Yeah,
we're totally cheating. Modern technology and money.
We got a washing machine and batteries.
It's like you said earlier on the hike in, standing on the shoulders of giants.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
the fact that you get here and you can come inside and warm up. Like, he got back here and it was 40 below and...
Yeah, cool.
And what?
I mean, we've done a lot of work just to insulate the house.
Yeah, we have. We've done a lot.
Anyway,
Awesome.
That's probably more than you need for a 600 square foot.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah.